All right, folks. Hello, welcome. As promised, I want to give you a quick introduction to After Effects. Get us going for our UI animation, our UX motion assignments, starting with our micro interaction animation, aka a preloader or loading icon. So let's have a look at After Effects. So as I mentioned previously, we have basically 6 steps that we take when we're working in After Effects. Okay, so of course we need to bring in our assets. They will always just be referenced, or if to use a Photoshop term, linked. Okay, you can't embed them. They will always be on your hard drive. The After Effects project needs to know where they are. So if you move folders around, you may get a missing link. You just have to point it back to where it should be. And then you're organizing, maybe making folders and so on. I'll go into those details as we get into the software. And definitely then arranging layers within a composition, or a comp, as I'll and most people will refer to it. Okay, so you can have many different comps within an After Effects project file. Okay. And then we're modifying, animating, adding effects, and we're going through and previewing. So hitting the space bar, loading up your timeline into RAM, and seeing how it works. So basically just going, back and forth again and again and again, 1,000 million, gazillion times. And once you're finally ready to send it off into the world, we are rendering and exporting. All right, so let's have a look at the software. So when you're getting into this, let's make me a little smaller here. Is that gonna work for us? There we go. You don't need me to be that big. So when you open After Effects for the first time, you'll see that we get this introductory window. You can go to New Project. This is a great place to poke around and see what After Effects has to offer. Basic tools, working with comps, creating and animating text, all that stuff that we will be going into. But yeah, this is a great little overview, and then there's all kinds of them over there. So we want to create a new project, so it'll come to this. So just like any other Adobe software, basically you'll see that there's these windows, okay, that you can highlight, and they highlight in blue. So this is our project window. It also hides the effect controls, which will pop up when you add an effect. This is our composition window, you can see up there. And then all kinds of different tools available. But basically 1, 2, and 3, this is our timeline, okay? So once we create a comp, it will live down there, and we'll be adding our layers, okay? So, and then of course up at the top, the usual suspects. We can create a new comp there. We can add layers, effects, do our animation. And if you're ever missing anything that I refer to, you can go to the window here and see all kinds of plugins and scripts and expressions that live there. But don't worry, we'll be getting into that stuff ASAP. So let's create a new composition. Okay, what you will see if I go to the presets, if you've never used After Effects, it'll default to this one here, HDTV 1080. So it's expecting that you're going to be making a high definition landscape aspect ratio. Don't worry about the square pixels. The frame rate is important. Okay. When we get into our into cinematics or film related elements, we're probably going to go down to 24. But for concept animation, some people bump up our frame rate to 60 frames per second. We can leave ours, don't worry about it. And don't worry about the 2997, that's kind of a legacy held over from when broadcasters had to try to sync up audio and video, and this kind of magical number popped up. And just so you know, even when you create a file, create a movie on a phone, it'll say it's $29.97, but it's actually $30. So just leave it, $29.97 is fine. You'll also see down in here that yours will probably say $29.29. If you've never done this before or never looked at After Effects before. So it's going to default to a 30-second comp, okay? So, but this is important, okay? So our starting time code is at 0, which is kind of strange. It's just an After Effects thing. But these are important. So that little semicolon differentiates our frames, our seconds, our minutes, and our hours. If you ever get into an hour-long composition, you're doing something wrong, okay? You do not need to ever be creating something that long. The idea here is that in After Effects, you're creating small comps, and then you're taking all those small comps and bringing them into a bigger comp, or rendering them out to Premiere Pro or another editor, and then building your bigger project that way. So we'll keep our small, and for our first assignment, we want it to be 2 seconds. So again, these little semicolons are important, okay? Anywhere between 2 and 5 seconds I've mentioned. So yeah, so just make sure that you're hitting those semicolons, or you can use a period too, that works fine. The background color, that makes a difference for if we're not rendering with an alpha channel, okay, with transparency. If we are looking to eventually create with transparency, that background color doesn't exist, okay? It won't get rendered. So what we often do is we'll bring in a background layer, okay? But I'll get into that. For now, today, we'll keep it very, very simple for our first project, okay? So, yeah, so basically now we are modifying our resolution, okay, to fit our first project, which of course is approximately 500 by 500 pixels, okay, or something thereof. You can make it a banner style preloader, maybe, you know, shorter and wider, or something around that size, okay. Obviously, we will never in the real world create a 500 by 500 pixel preloader, but this is for concept animation, okay? So we want it to be relatively big, but not giant, all right? Definitely composition name is important, okay? I'm a big fan of file management, so A1 for assignment 1 underscore preloader underscore your name. Okay, and then a huge, massive, mega version number fan, okay? Always, always, always version your compositions. And because when we create this, it'll live up here, we can create multiple versions of that comp, okay? There's no reason to ever delete a composition, okay? It will, you can just say, oh, I'm going to try something different. Duplicate the comp and then continue on, okay? And I'm also going to copy that into my clipboard, because right now there is no After Effects project file, okay? So when I go to save it, I'll be able to just paste that in there. All right, so click OK, and now we have our first comp. You can see right up here, it's going to live up in our project file, a project window, and it has the relevant information. So our next step is to bring in our elements, and in this case it's that circle, and there are a number of ways to do that, okay, to bring in elements. My go-to is just to double click in here and it'll pop up an import window. You can right click and say import file, but you can also bring in files, just slide them in, drag them in, so which is what I'm going to do. So yeah, it's just was living on my desktop, so I can just slide that in, and you can see here now that it's come in as a PNG. Now, if it's highlighted in your project window, you'll see that we have some information about it. Okay, so it's 833 megapixels wide and high, but you'll also get some other information. So we know that it's a good high quality image, but you'll also see this little plus sign, and what that means is that it has transparency baked into it. Okay. The straight you don't need to worry about. It's more to do with the pre-multiplied or straight multiplied. It's something we don't need to worry about at this stage. The thing you need to know about is this little plus sign, which means it has transparency. So if we were to want to later on render this out with transparency with our alpha channel, it's already baked in. Okay. So now that it's in my project window, I need to bring it into my timeline, okay, into that comp. And there you go. I've dragged it down, and you can see it's a little big. So I'm going to use my mouse wheel, and you can see that it's bopping out like that. I actually have, where is that thing? There it is. I'm going to put up my little thing here. It's kind of big, actually. Yeah, never mind. I'll bring that in when I start using my keys. So you can see it's nice and big. I'm using my mouse wheel to zoom in and out. You can grab the corners if you like to. Hold down Shift, of course, to maintain its aspect ratio. But I'm not actually a fan of doing that. I like to go down here into the timeline and twirl it down, to use Adobe speak. Twirl down. You can see these little chevrons here, so I'm twirling down, and right now there's no effects, there's nothing on it, and so our only options are the transform property. And so I'm twirling that down, and you can see that the scale has been, it's highlighted. That's the thing I was just using. So I like to just keep things easy, and so I'm just rounding that up so it's a nice clean number. That's just me being a little bit OCD. So yeah, you can see our transform properties. We can change where the anchor point is. It defaults to being in the middle, which is great. We can change where that is. We can change its position, scale, rotation, and opacity. Okay. So with this, because this is a circle, circular arrow, so to speak, let's start with our rotation. So when you get into this, let's zoom in here. You can see that there's this little icon here. Let's color it in a bit. It's supposed to represent an old-timey stopwatch, okay? And so that's what we need to do. We need to click this to start our animation, okay? That's the first thing you do. Once you do that, you don't actually have to go here anymore. Our keyframes will live on the timeline. So we'll do that in a sec, but just before I do that, with rotation, you'll see this number times 0.0. And what that means is that this is the degrees, okay? 0 to 359. Or is it 365? 360, yeah. So these are the degrees, and this is the full rotations, okay? So what we want to do for our assignment is make this a seamless animation. So it'll be important for us to match whatever's at as far as degrees or any of these elements, match them at the beginning and at the end of our timeline, okay? So let's go ahead and click that rotation, and you can see if you hover over it, what's it called? My mouse is too big. Time vary stopwatch, toggle ability of property to change over time. So that's adding our keyframes. And you can see here, because my timeline was at the beginning of our timeline, that it created that keyframe there. And that's important, right? So if I delete that completely away and my timeline happened to be, or my timeline indicator, or if you hover over it, it'll call it, current time indicator. Wherever this is where the keyframes will be created. Okay, so that that will apply for all of your work in After Effects. That is important. All right, so we'll click that, and you'll see now it's created a keyframe. And the good thing about keyframes is you can manipulate them, modify them, push them around wherever you want that to go, and it should be fine. So yeah, I'm putting that there, and then at the end I'll do the same thing. Now, to create another keyframe, you don't go here because that will just remove all those abilities. You can go over here and create the same keyframe, okay? Or if I undo that, I can just highlight this one, copy and paste. So Control Command C, Control Command V, and wherever my timeline indicator is, that's where it'll live, okay? So, but the thing about this with rotation, it's different than all of these others because we actually want it to rotate. So let's go to this end here, and we'll go to our full rotation, and we'll just hit 1, okay? And I'll hit the play button, which is my space bar. Or if you go to preview up here, you can see what you can change it if you'd like, if you'd prefer, but your left hand or your non-mouse hand should always be ready to go, okay? It should always be hovering, because with any software, of course, it's the same, but definitely with After Effects, keyboard shortcuts will save your life, okay? So start trying to learn those. There's one keyboard shortcut that I'll refer to in a minute that's important. So I have my timeline indicated or highlighted, okay? So this box, my timeline or comp box, is highlighted, and I'll hit the play button. And you can see that this is rotating clockwise, but it's facing the wrong way. Okay, so we could go to this keyframe and maybe make it a minus. Okay, so just go -1, hit enter, and see, oh, okay, now it's facing the correct way. However, this is where I would engage you and say, does this feel right? Does this feel right to you? Because it doesn't to me. And the reason is because it's going counterclockwise, okay? If this was a reloader, maybe this would work, but we want it to be a loading icon, right? We want to get across the message that this that our computer is loading something. We're going forward in time, so going counterclockwise doesn't work. All right, so let's we can either undo that or just go type that back in. So we're going the correct way, but our element, our graphic is pointed the wrong way. So the easiest way to do that, to change it, to make it correct, is actually just to right-click on the layer. You'll find many of these tools, these layers, effects, many of these are available right down if you just right-click on this layer. Okay, so right-click on it, you'll get lots of options. What we want to do is go to transform and then flip either horizontal or vertical. All right. So if I click that and I hit play now, boom, we're done. We're awesome. We're ready to go. Render it off, send it to the client, get paid, and your client will say, no, I'm not paying you that $5 that we agreed on. This is not worth my money. The other thing is that, like I mentioned previously, when we create a brand new project or composition, we haven't actually created any file yet, okay? And because I'm introducing this, I forgot that one of my workflows is once I load up and have, sorry, I'm teaching. Thank you, bye. Thank you. All right, good job. At home with kids, it's lovely, I love it. So we are, where were we? Yeah, I don't actually have an After Effects project file at all. Okay, this. If the power goes out, then that's it. There's nothing. None of my keyframes, none of my comps. Oh, everything's gone. So let's save it. Okay, so Control Command S or just go to save. And because there's no file, we need to create it. So because I remembered to highlight that clipboard, I should be able to paste. No, because I pasted a keyframe, and that's what you'll get. Yeah, just go A1 preloader, and you can see I have one. Maybe I'll go version 2, or maybe give it a name. So the preloader, so that when I'm going there, you know, when I've experimented and I've created 10 different designs. Here I can go, okay, preloader red arrow, and I'll know what it is. All right. So there you go. Now we have finally an After Effects project file that we can come back to. The power goes out, we'll be safe. All right. So right now we have this seamless still, but I haven't touched on the one principle of animation that is critical, and I haven't had to yet, because when you're doing rotation, we don't want this. We want this to be continuously flowing, right? We want these keyframes to just be on and off, so that we get this nice seamlessness. But when we get into any other of these transform properties, then we need to do easy ease, okay? And the way we do that is as follows. So say let's play around with the scale. All right, so I'm going to click scale, and with any of these, we need to make sure that our scale, our opacity, our position, any of these elements are the same at the beginning of the comp as they are at the end of the comp, right? So yeah, I've created that keyframe. Because I just created it, I could just copy paste, or again, you can just go over to the left. And now inside here, I can do anything I want, right? I can go and take this scale down to there. I could, and you can see it's just going to go bouncing back up, right? Maybe I want it to stay there. So for instance, I'm just going to copy paste this keyframe so that it goes down, it stays there, and then it comes back up. Yeah, and I can just maybe drag this one over, and so now you should get something that goes up and then down, up and then down. Okay, so now you should get a sense of why easy easing is critical to making things look good. Because this scaling doesn't look good. It looks like a machine did it, right? And so anything, like I've mentioned, anything in the universe doesn't move like this. In the real universe, everything easy eases, okay? And the best way to do that is with a keyboard shortcut. But right-click on a keyframe, and you'll see right at the bottom, keyframe assistant, and then you'll see easy ease, all right? And that is After Effects or Adobe speak for slow in and slow out. And I highly suggest you use F9, or on a Mac it's something similar. All right, so that is what you'll see now, and you can see the difference between this keyframe and this diamond keyframe, okay? The only diamonds we should see are on full rotations, okay, to keep that rotation going. Every other keyframe in your arsenal should look like this nice hourglass look, okay? And of course, we want to do that to all our keyframes. We could go and grab that and select them all. Better yet, to select all keyframes on a layer is just click the word, okay? And you can see now all of my keyframes are done. I'll hit F9, and boom, they're all eased. And now they feel much, much more realistic or just acceptable to our eyeballs, okay? And that's basically it. Like we can do, we can have this sort of scaling up and down. One of the things I like to do for this is maybe I'll actually take this keyframe and just plunk it right on top so that it replaces that one. So it's going to start small. I'm actually going to start it completely gone, so there's nothing. And then it's going to scale up and we'll say it's going to scale up to its full size, so 60%. I'll take this guy, just hit the delete key. And what I want to do now is, instead of it just going to this size and then staying there, so if I did this, it would just pop, right? So there's a pop, so that's bad. We want this to be seamless. And so let's play with opacity. We'll click opacity, and you can see it's at 100. But so I'll take this keyframe and maybe put it there, and then by the time it gets to its full size, then I'll take this and just zoom, get rid of it. So that's when you're creating new keyframes, you don't have to, there's no like make keyframe button, okay? What you're doing is just putting your timeline indicator where you want that thing to be different, and you're going here and you're modifying these elements, okay? So like if I put my keyframe timeline indicator there, I could just go and crank this up to whatever, 50%, and you'll see there's a new keyframe there, okay? I'll just delete that guy. So now what's going to happen is this thing's going to zoom up and then fade away. All right. I could actually, because this is now this scale is disappearing, I don't actually want it to slow down. So I want to change this back to a linear keyframe. Right now it's called a Bezier keyframe, or easy ease. So I'm going to right click on that, keyframe interpolation, okay, and then you'll get this dialog box, and then so instead of a Bezier, we're going to put that back to linear. All right, click OK, and now this should just zoom up again and again and again and again, and feel somewhat seamless. We've got a whole lot of missing information here. There's nothing going on, which is bad. We never want any kind of blank here. So what I'm going to do, actually, just play with this, is duplicate this layer a bunch of times. But I'm a big fan of keeping my timeline neat and tidy. I like to see my visual, like my layer stack, and so because this layer is invisible for this whole time, what I'm going to do is actually go to the end here and just click and drag it so that it stops at this point. Okay, so that now when I look back, if I come into this project file and I look at this comp, I know that this element is only visible during this time. That's just for me, keeping things nice and clean in my comps. So what I'm going to do now is just duplicate this layer and maybe offset these things just to get some interesting look. Okay, so with that layer selected, you can either go up to edit and duplicate. Okay, and just by the way, that's the same for your comps. Okay, we can edit and duplicate it in there. Okay, so that's what I suggest you do, and maybe we'll do that right now. So I'll double click on this one. Okay, and now this comp, I'm going to start modifying and playing with. So click that, Control D. I'm just going to offset that a little bit. Control D, offset that a little bit, and do it as much as you want. Control D, Control D, Control D, until you reach the end of your comp, maybe, or maybe just do it once. It's up to you entirely, obviously. But yeah, now whoa, that's kind of looking freaky. I've never done that before. It's kind of fun, right? We get a little bit of weirdness. It's kind of, I don't know that a client would want that. But you can see how just creating keyframes for one layer and then duplicating that layer gives you these kinds of options. Okay, so I'll go back to this one just to show you our keyboard shortcut, and I'm going to bring out my board here, and with this layer selected, I'm going to hit the letter U. Okay, U. So if I click this guy and I hit U, you'll see what it does is brings up all of the elements, all of the transform properties for anything, effects, position, scale, anything. It'll only show those. right? So you don't have to go in and twirl down and open it up, especially if you're working on a very small screen, okay? So yeah, the letter U is your best friend. All right, so I have this guy. Maybe maybe I'll take this back to its original. Maybe it's going to scale up to here. I'll just move this around. Maybe it's not going to have anything to do with opacity, so I'm just going to get rid of that. And you saw, I'll just undo for a sec. You saw that if I want to keep, like, I had my timeline indicator here, and right now it's at 0%. So if I delete this, it'll stay at 0. But if I put my timeline indicator here, where it's at 100, and I remove that, then it'll stay where that is. Okay. So just so you know that that can, excuse me, it does make a big difference where your stuff is. So yeah, we've got this kind of thing. He's going, maybe I'll have it scale, I'll take this keyframe down, and then I'll take this scale and just copy paste it so that it's going up and down. Again, take this. The good thing about After Effects is that you can, while it's RAM previewing, you can make modifications. So I can hit F9 and it'll update right away. Okay. Just while we're on the RAM preview idea, you can see this green bar. Okay, that means that this timeline is RAM. It is uploaded into my RAM, and so it's going to play at real time. Okay, if I make a modification, say just move this guy, you'll see that green disappears, and now it has to reload that into RAM. Now this is going to be incredibly fast, right? It just boom right away. But if I have a lot of elements and lots of effects, and I have a slow computer, this will take a long time. Okay, so you hit RAM preview, it will go through it once to load it into RAM, and it won't be at the correct speed. Okay, and it's funny when you get into audio because it goes. That's pretty fun. So yeah, just keep that in mind when we're doing that. So yeah, say I want to have this playing. Maybe I want to now duplicate this. Okay, duplicate it. I'm going to hit U, and now I want to play with, say, changing this around slightly. So what I want to do, what I'm going to actually do, I'm going to put my timeline, maybe my timeline indicator there, and I'm going to actually select the word scale so that I have all of my keyframes selected, and I'm just going to maybe bring this down a bit so that now it's going to go, it actually goes into the minus, which is kind of fun, right? It's going into minus 16, so it has a bit of a loop, which is kind of interesting. And the other thing I can do is modify its rotation. So if I click the word rotation, again, both keyframes are selected, what I can do is actually click and drag this so that both of them are being affected. So you can see this is now 178. If I go over here, this one is now 178 plus that extra one. So now there'll be a little bit of offset. Okay, they're still spinning in the same speed, but they've started at different angles. Okay, so just go ahead and play with this stuff. This is just bringing in PNGs. Going forward in our next lesson, I'll get into shape layers, okay, which is just up here, new shape layer. Okay, very, very, very powerful. Shape layers are very powerful. So yeah, this is where you will be creating your new layers, unless you're bringing in outside elements like we did. But we could bring in a solid layer. Okay, so it's basically just a flat, solid layer with color of any kind, you can go and select, you know, let's make a nice complementary color here. So there you go. I'll click make that one, and it just changes the name. I'll click OK, and of course it brings it up on top of your layer stack, which is not helpful for us right now. I'm just going to drag that down, and now you'll see that we have this nice background color. With this layer, I could create masks on it, which I'll get into at a later date. But yeah, just so you know, we can again layer new. We can go to text, okay, and you'll see it just creates an empty text layer. And so because I had it playing, it doesn't. Yeah, you have to double click it to modify it. So I could say loading ... and maybe we'll bring that up on top of everything. And you can see I still have my cursor tool handy, so now I need to go back and select my move tool or selection tool, which is V, just like other Adobe products. And then I can modify, put this somewhere else. Now that I have it selected, you can see I can push it around in here. It's selected down there, but I can also go up to my character panel. If you can't see your character panel, go here and to your window character panel, and I can change its say its color, its size, and of course all the usual suspects in there. Maybe make it nice and big, all caps, you know, maybe maybe we want a different font. I'll get into how we can access our Adobe fonts, which is right there. But, you know, just get something on your system that works. And there you go. So with this one now, I could add some effects. Text layers are very robust, so I'll get into that as we go. But maybe I just want this thing to undulate in its opacity. So so it's going to start at 100. It's going to go down to 0, or maybe actually reverse. So I'll just take these keyframes and reverse them. So it's going to load up, and then I'll take this guy, copy paste, and then maybe I'll take this guy, copy paste. Oh, it's got to be 100. So it's going to go up, and then maybe down again. So copy paste. Again, for a seamless looping animation, everything has to be the same at the beginning and end. So now I can go like this, bing, bing, bing. So yeah, you know, if my client wanted you know, wanted some fun, there you go. So maybe I'll take this one off. So it's going to load, and yeah, we'll take that one. I'll just delete it right away. So there you go. I've got something that's loading, that works. It's, you know, it's incredibly simple, but my user knows that my computer is doing something. Okay. So what we'll be looking for is, of course, a branded preloader. So our colors, our fonts need to be suited to that brand, but also the motion, right? So right now this is going relatively slow. Maybe my client doesn't want it to be that slow. They want their thing to look like it's fast, their app to feel fast. So maybe we go into our preloader and we shorten it. So take that full spin and maybe just bring it down to, say, here, which means we need to shorten our composition length, right? So it's going at a relatively good speed, so I want to shorten this length. And how do we do that? You'll see here, this gray bar here is our work area. So if we go to the edge, we can grab our end of our work area and bring that in. Okay. You can also use the keyboard shortcuts of B for the beginning. Oh, and that's a terrible keyboard. Thanks, no board, for a non-QWERTY board. So B for the beginning of the work area and N for the end of that work area. Or just go to the edges and click and drag it. Okay. So now my timeline, my work area will only animate through this position. Okay. And if I was happy with that, what I would do is right click on that anywhere in that work area and go trim comp to work area. Okay. And then you'll see now that my comp is smaller. If I go up to my composition settings or control or command K, you'll see now that my duration is 1.5 seconds. Okay, so it's really that straightforward to modify the length and the speed of our elements. Okay, and so yeah, now I need to change my my loader, so maybe I'll just take this guy and so that it's just going to go up and down, up and down. Okay, maybe I'll take that opacity and hit F9 so that it feels a little nicer. See, even opacity makes just a nice subtle difference using Easy Ease. Okie doke. We could also play with its if I leave its opacity there, I could also play with its position. So maybe I take its position and I'll just move it right up off the screen. Actually, let's go to the left. Okay, so right at first it's off the screen there. I'm going to go to the end and just click and drag it and move it across my screen, and you can see now I have a motion path. So now this thing is loading, and it kind of feels like it should go the other way to me. It's also a little fast, but you know, that's it's kind of hard to see it, but maybe my client liked this, but they wanted it to go the other way. A really quick and easy way to do that is to select all your keyframes. So press position and right click, and you'll see keyframe assistant, and because I have two keyframes selected, I can time reverse them. So it just goes zoop and flicks them like that move in chess, where you can do the rook and king, I think it is, or queen, I think it's the king, and switch them around. So yeah, so now it's going to go the other way. Okay, so that's the position and creating a motion path. But we'll get into all of that for as we go on our journey. Okay, so let's transition back to me. We'll say thank you very much for following along, and I hope this gave you a bit of a good introduction to After Effects, and we'll get us going for our app loading / preloader / micro interaction animation project. All right, so with that I will say bon voyage, adieu, we'll see you next time, and happy animating. All right, ciao.